me show you a place where you gon' wanna move your feet until they start.
Welcome to part 5 of Commission Conversations, Navigating Muddy Waters. We're bringing you our last video on the commission situation. Last for now, who knows? I'm sure there could be more later as things evolve. But right now, we figured we'd give a little bit of an update on what's going on in the landscape on lawsuits and where we're at. So where would you like to start?
Well, this has been a long and winding road, really, and nobody's been really paying too much attention. We were kind of preoccupied with, COVID, but the bulk of these started back in 2019.
Yeah.
They started in their local courts and kind of wound their way and gathered attorneys and gathered their plaintiffs and became a class action. And there are actually 2 lawsuits. Well, there's many lawsuits, but there's 2 kind of parties that feel that they were injured. There's the sellers, and then there's the buyers. And the seller suit right now are probably the ones that we hear the most about.
Well, that's where it started, more with the seller side of things. And I think once that gained some traction, buyers said, ooh, we can get in on this.
Or their attorneys.
Well, their attorneys, right, somebody. So it certainly has evolved from being primarily seller lawsuits, obviously the large ones that we know, and the one locally with MLS PIN. And so now buyers have seen that this was something that was successful for a party prevailing, and they've now engaged their attorneys and are starting the buyer lawsuits. And so there's been literally every other day you can see a new lawsuit creeping up or some news about the lawsuit. So it's been interesting, but there's a lot of potential for all this to snowball into one big thing. And that's kind of what's partially held off final answers, I think, is that the judicial system is trying to get to the point about whether they address every single little thing, which would probably be onerous and too time consuming and everything else, or do we put them all under one master class, which is what a class action lawsuit is.
Yeah,
so that's kind of the direction they're heading in. But there's still a lot of 1s and 2s saying, no, we want to be heard. We've been injured.
Yeah, and when you go through a class action lawsuit, there is an opportunity for people to opt out, and you will have that. But usually what ends up happening is they opt out and then they realize it's too expensive for them to pursue it individually on their own. So the bulk of the people end up joining the class and becoming part of all the settlements. But there's been some, as you've been reading the headlines, I mean, I think everybody's been out there kind of following this, especially, in the past year or so.
Especially all of us who are involved in it, right?
And, we had the big settlements. And I think because of the size of the settlements, they made really splashy headlines. And so naturally we had, the media outlets like Wall Street Journal and, New York Times, they are here to sell newspapers, and those articles, because they touch so many Americans, they generate a lot of clicks.
Sure. But there's also been an opportunity that we've seen where others have joined the conversation and talked about the detriment to some of this, or the potential detriment to some of this. So there's certainly been an opportunity for people now to chime in and say, whoa, let's think this through. What else could happen from all of this? So at the moment, we have all of those same lawsuits we've talked about on prior editions of this video. Additionally, all the new buyer ones, since we started these videos, a lot of those buyer ones have cropped up new. And we still don't have a resolution for certain on any of the ones who have initial settlements that have been approved. So we are looking at probably November for a National Association's final blessing of that lawsuit, finalization of that lawsuit. But they're looking to try to make some of these changes midsummer. We're looking at, I don't even know where MLS PIN from a timeline is. I know they're looking and trying to make a decision on where to go from here, because the emails you're probably receiving from the National Association of Realtors reference the MLSs that are realtor-owned MLSs. So when we get those emails, they may end up being completely appropriate to what's going to happen here, but they're not necessarily absolutely going to be appropriate to what's going to happen here, because MLS PIN is not a realtor-owned MLS. And so that whatever happens here is going to be more dictated by what MLS PIN decides to do with their lawsuit and how they decide to settle out
Right. And then we have also the buyer side lawsuits. So there are buyers that have filed lawsuits that are very similar because they are commission based, and they are based on the fact that the commission is all on one side of the deal, and it's not I won't say it's not transparent, but they didn't feel it was transparent. I think we all know it was paying more for the house because they couldn't negotiate their side of the deal. And so their suits are being settled right now differently, but they're trying to put them all under one big umbrella, because I think the courts and the Department of Justice realizes the best way to handle this is to put it all to bed at once, so there's nothing lingering out there. Um, but given that, there's a lot of parties involved, and so we've got a lot of legal wrangling. A lot of it is way over my head, but it's very technical. They're filing motions and trying to delay and get, everybody wants to make sure that they don't get left out, and they're included in all of this. So you're going to see some more headlines that says, there's some delays here, but another settlement there. And it's a lot of moving parts. And I think it will eventually all get resolved under one big tent. But right now, I think we're trying to umbrella. And right now we're trying to get everybody in there. But it's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. And, we would love to have some definitive answers for you today and say, this is what we're going to do. This is what's going to happen. And we're all, I think, just waiting with bated breath to figure out what direction we're supposed to move forward in, and know how to practice our profession in a way that will satisfy the law, in a way that will satisfy the consumer and help the consumer in the best way possible. So we're all in a little bit of limbo there, but and then at the same time, right, you're all very much probably experiencing a busier spring market than we've had in a while, or a busier market than we've had in a while with the spring market. And so, I think that the answer for right now is keep your head down, keep focused, have those candid conversations with both sellers and buyers. Make sure that you're communicating and making them aware without going into too much detail and overwhelming them. But have those conversations, sign a listing contract when you take the listing, sign a buyer agent contract when you start working with a buyer, and just keep on top of what's going on. We'll try to help you keep on top, because we are always there for you.
Always there for you.